Alright, so the purpose of this video is just to give a quick overview of the gear that I have. I'm going to run through things pretty quickly. If you have any questions about any particular item, just let me know and I'll try and get a little bit more information about that. So, just to begin with the lenses, I've got a pancake lens, 40mm, works good for handheld on a 5D Mark IV. As I mentioned before, I've got 24mm, 35mm, is the 50mm f1.2, the 85mm f1.2. This is used for portraits a lot. Let's see, the macro 100mm, so another portrait lens, also good for macro or close-up photography. And for the zooms, let's see, let's start with the fisheye. So this is an 8 to 15mm fisheye. If you have any particular reason for doing fisheye, this is pretty much the lens to get. Oop. And this is the 11 to 24mm. This can be used with the RED camera for very high speed video, I think up to 5 times slow motion. So if you want to shoot HD and get very slow-mo, this is the lens to shoot with the RED. And here is the 24 to 70. This is typically used for, well, this is a jack of all trades kind of lens, heavily used in fashion, but this is like, you can use it for anything. And here is the 70 to 200, another great portrait lens, also used for wildlife photography. That we'll be using it for that. But this is typically the 70 to 200, the 24 to 70 down there, and this one, the 200 f2. These are typically used for like very high-end model photography. So like Victoria's Secret, or not Victoria's Secret, yeah, Victoria's Secret, but Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition, those 3 lenses will be used almost 100% of the time. And you are very familiar with this camera. It's 5D Mark IV. I've got it all taped up, but same as yours. I should mention this was sent back to Canon for the log upgrade, so I don't know if you shoot log, but this does have that capability on it. And here's the EOS 1 VHS. I think Canon just stopped producing these a couple months ago, but it uses all the same lenses as the 5D Mark IV. It is an EOS model, but it is film. So if you do want to shoot film, all these lenses are compatible. So transitioning into film. All right. So these are all basically manufactured by Kyocera. They're either Contax or Yashica, but they were all produced by Kyocera in the 90s and early 2000s. These 3 right here, those are all basically the same model. It's a Yashica T4. I know you've seen the photography from Terry Richardson. He's photographed Miley Cyrus, Barack Obama, all sorts of people. This is the camera he uses. Very versatile, very popular right now. But there's also an upgraded version. I got 2 of these here. Let's see. So this is a Contax T3, basically the same sort of camera, but slightly better lens, slightly sharper, and a slightly larger aperture. Just put that back like that. And also from the Contax family, we have a Contax 645. This is a medium format camera. 645 is the 6x4.5 is the aspect ratio for the photographs this takes, so they call it 645. I've got a couple of backs for these. The camera itself isn't that notable, but let's see, I think it's this lens. No, So I'll just, oh yeah, this is the one. So this is the Zeiss Planar 80mm f2. Very, very popular lens for wedding photography. Jose Villa, who's like the #1 wedding photographer, uses this lens, and he charges, I don't know, $15,000 for a wedding. You can look up his photography. It's very popular. But yeah, Contax 645 in this lens, pretty good combo. I also have, let's see, this is the 55mm f3.5, also for the Contax 645. Reason I have this lens is because I mentioned Terry Richardson earlier. He no longer uses his 3 Yashica T4s, and what he'll do is he'll use a off-camera flash bracket, and he'll attach that to a DSLR and have the flash and a battery grip, and basically replicate the same image you would get with a vintage point and shoot with the flash. I bought that lens to shoot medium format using the same system. As far as I know, nobody else uses that medium format point and shoot style camera, but that's available. And so moving on to the Red. This is the Red Monstro. It's a 8K camera and it shoots at 60p. It's a full frame lens. If you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they were using, I think it was some sort of precursor to this, but it's not quite as good as this one. This is basically the same sensor that they use in the Panavision Millennium DXL2, which is the hottest camera in Hollywood right now. So it's pretty good. Got a Rode VideoMic Pro attached to it, and one of these HyperCore batteries. These can be taken on airplanes, so if I do fly in, I can use that battery. I do also have a larger battery, one over here. You can use it to charge lights, but you can't fly these on planes. They just have too much lithium. And what I was referring to, when you see, you can put these on lights. This light I have back here, this is the Digital Sputnik DS1, and the neat thing about this, I can show you on this other phone, is that you can actually control. So right now the brightness is only on 50%. Can't see it real well because this is just an iPhone, but cranked up, you can change color temperature, you can change the hue, you can change the brightness, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with it, and you can all control it from a phone. So let me try and get that back. 56, 100, turn that back to 0, 100, so there we are with that. And I know I mentioned I had the Kino Flow Celebs. So this is the Kino Flow Celeb 450. Can do the same thing as the DS1, in that you can change the hue, saturation, color temperature, all that. I'll just kind of run through a couple of these things. Let's see, gel. So these are presets. In Hollywood, what they used to use were gels, and they put those, here, let me put this to 100%. They used to put gels over the lights so you could get a desired color. Can't see these real well because this is on. But you can change this to any color you want, but you can use the gels. They went to Rothko and Lee, which are the huge Hollywood producers for lighting gels, and they basically put all the presets in there. So if you want a Hollywood look, those are all available in there. Just turn off the. There we go. So that's also available. That one needs to be plugged in. You can't use batteries for those, but I also have a, what's it called? Celeb 250, which is the same thing, just slightly smaller. Those ones Oh, there's a 450 right there. I got my other 450 right there. But they both have louvers on them. You can take them off. Basically the things that you see on crosswalks, just to block the light, or to at least direct it in a certain direction. So those are also available on there. Let's see. All right, so this is the Leica MP. It's a pure mechanical camera. I don't imagine we'd be using this much because we have more flexibility with these other cameras, but the Summicron 35mm f2, one of the very sharpest lenses you can get on the market. There might be one or two lenses that are sharper than it, but that's pretty much it. Let's see, so this is the Sony a7R III. This one's pretty unique because you can use an adapter and use all these Canon lenses, those ones, all of them, even here I didn't talk about 24-105. This is usually used on this camera just because it has a greater flexibility for zoom. It's got image stabilization, so all around fantastic. But you can use any of those lenses on this camera with the adapter. The adapter on here can also be used for this lens, so like I said, we won't probably use this camera, but you know, the lens is still on the table. Neat thing about this is that it's got focus peaking, which means you can do manual focusing and the camera will automatically highlight in the image what is and what isn't in focus. So a lot of these, like the 85-1.2, 51.2, 200 f2, and this lens right here, they have a very narrow depth of field, and it's very tricky to focus, even with autofocus on those. But this is a 50mm f0.95. Very unique images on that. I had to get this modified, so this doesn't normally work on a Sony or Leica, but you know, the only way to get it to work with modern cameras is to get it modified. Very unique images. If you want to check it out, it's typically called the Canon Dream Lens. You can find some pretty cool images on Google with that. And this lens right here, made for the Sony camera, but it is a Zeiss 2.8 or 35mm f2.8 lens, which you may remember that is the same lens that is used on the Contax T3. So using that on there, it's basically a digital Contax T3 with all the autofocus, continuous autofocus, eye focus, and focus peaking, all the cool stuff available on Sony's. And this is another medium format camera, but like the Leica MP, this is pure mechanical, so a little bit different. Needs to be wound up. You have to look through the viewfinder to the top. Pretty unique. I know the porn star Owen Gray uses that, so if you want to check out some of his photos, I think you can see them on his Twitter. Right here, just a vintage Polaroid. So you can use the 600 type Polaroid film or the modern, no, you can't use the modern I-type film on this, so you can only use the vintage Polaroid 600 film on that. Still sell in stores. It's a little bit expensive, which is why I prefer these cameras over here. This is the Fujifilm Instax SQ6. It takes same style photos as the Polaroid, but they're a little bit smaller. I'd say quite a bit smaller actually. The Fujifilm Instax Y300 though makes wide format images, but they're basically widescreen versions of the Polaroid. They're almost exactly the same size. So despite all these other cameras, this is probably my favorite camera. And right here, I know you mentioned you went to the dentist, but this is the Polaroid Macro 5 SLR, and these used to be used for crime scenes, a lot of investigative work, but also for dentist office, dermatologists, and stuff like that. Reason being, it does have 5 different macro settings, so you can zoom in. I'll take it this way. You can zoom in, get a perfect profile of somebody's head, and you can zoom in up to 3 times actual image size. And this is unique in that it takes Polaroid Spectra film, which is also produced by Polaroid, but it's slightly wider, so it's somewhere in between this Polaroid camera, and just all sorts of wacky stuff. It's got two flashes on it, and I don't know, it's fun to play with. I think that's it for now. Oh, here, got this. So this is an FMV R300 ring light. Just a regular battery powered LED. You can attach it to the front of the Red. I've got the rails installed, and you can attach it on there. So I don't know if you've ever seen blackedraw.com, but they use a setup similar to that. They use Red camera and an LED light like this. It's pretty cool because you can change the color temperature. So if you want to do daylight or tungsten, that's also available. I didn't go over the GoPro or a couple other things on there. I also have tripods, various other knickknacks, brackets, cages, stuff for these cameras. I'm probably not going to go into that stuff because it's pretty specialty and there's no point in going over that. But I think that should wrap it up for camera gear. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.